Today's talk is titled Life Balance, and is to be delivered by Andy Feigin. Andy Feigin discovered Unitarian Universalists in 2009 when he mentioned to a group at a New Year's party that he was searching for a spiritual community in which he would feel safe as well as challenged. Someone in the group suggested the local UU congregation, and upon attending his first services there, Andy knew that he had found his spiritual home. Andy has been working towards retirement from his career as a professional stage manager, and is almost, without a few exceptions, there. He has used his knowledge and talents to add so much to our congregation, with our AV system, and also with his contributions to RE education. Please welcome Andy.
Thank you, Sue. Hi, everybody. Back in September, my wife, Mimi, and I were visiting our family up in Seattle. It was a nice sunny day, and we decided to check out a new playground that had recently been opened in West Seattle's beautiful Lincoln Park. When we got there, our granddaughter Olivia ran ahead to the seesaw and called out, "Come on, Grandpa!" She can't pronounce the R in Grandpa, so I've become Gampa. I get to the seesaw expecting to deal with that age-old challenge of two people of very different sizes balancing on a seesaw. But this is 2025, and folks have figured out how to make a better seesaw. You see, this one has built-in springs or some kind of resistance mechanism that senses the difference and evens it out so that I can seesaw with Olivia, as if we were equal in weight. Really fun. In fact, Mimi was able to join me, and Olivia's mom, Hannah, was able to join her, and we were still able to balance. The thought of that lovely invention, which brings balance to things that are not inherently balanced, got me thinking about the meaning of balance, and how finding balance in my current life, was something I was grappling with. In this talk, I'll share some of my explorations. Sharing is something we UUs love to do, and without necessarily having the answers, right? We question all the answers. In defining the UU value of pluralism, it is stated that we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So here we go. Balance is a big deal and an essential aspect of existence. Some ways of defining balance are the ability to maintain an upright position or steady posture without falling, a state where opposing forces or influences are equal, a state of calmness and composure. How about the amount of money in an account or the difference between credits and debits? We won't get into that on this talk. The proper distribution of elements to create harmony. Treating all sides equally, as in a ruling passed down by a judge. There's a lot to unpack in those definitions, and at this time in my life, there's a lot that resonates. To start with the most fundamental, the ability to maintain an upright position or steady posture without falling, I suspect it's a pretty universal experience. Finding that at our age, the mechanisms that help us maintain our balance get less dependable. They kind of just wear out like the shock absorbers on an aging car. They just don't function as well. On the other hand, the wisdom, knowledge, and life skills we gain as we age hopefully counter that physical loss of balance with an increased ability to achieve balance as a state of calmness and composure, and the proper distribution of elements to create harmony. We've heard about the importance of work-life balance. It's important for working folks not to let their careers overwhelm their lives. It has become standard business practice to encourage workers to limit how many hours they allow work to dominate their time. It's taught that a focus on the other things of life, family, hobbies, art, love, will make for a healthier life as well as increase workers' productivity on the job. For me personally, I'm going to say that at the height of my career, the work part of me occupied about 65% of my life, leaving 35% for the rest: husband, father, hiker, biker, guitarist, spiritual seeker. But in transitioning from a career life to a retired life, I've become much more thoughtful about the non-work parts of my life, to which I can now focus all of my time and energy. Well, in truth, I haven't retired 100%, so the chart looks more like this. Anyway, having put my career into deep storage, balancing the rest of my parts has become the challenge. I love the freedom that not working gives me, but I miss the schedule and discipline that my life had when I was working. I've tried scheduling my days with the various activities that I enjoy, but my tendency is towards freeform, not adhering to a disciplined schedule. There are still deadlines. For example, this talk had to be ready by 10 a.m. this morning. And so I find myself asking, how do I balance my parts now that my work is no longer one of them? Now's my chance to focus on what I want to be, which parts I want to nurture. Perhaps there are parts that have been denied, which are waiting to emerge. Sue and I were talking about how preparing these talks can be very rewarding, a great way to discover things about yourself, and as often happens, while I'm focusing on topics such as this one, things seem to appear that shed some light. For example, Shakespeare's All the World's a Stage was recited by Ted Danson's character in a show I just binged, titled A Man on the Inside. And it resonated, so I asked Sue to read it for us. There's a book that I've referred to in the past which keeps giving, titled From Aging to Saging, a revolutionary approach to growing older. The book addresses many issues that confront us as we age. But for me, the two big takeaways are avoiding defining ourselves by our careers. Far too many of us fall into that trap and then are lost once we're retired. Secondly, cherish the wisdom you have acquired through your years and find ways to make your new purpose in life as a sage, thus the saging of the title. Thanks to the recent biopic on Bob Dylan titled A Complete Unknown, it's a must-see if you have a fondness for the music world of the 60s, I was reminded that one of my projects for retirement is to do a deep dive into Dylan's music and poetry. My friend Jim is a brilliant guy with an incredible volume of facts in his head about literature and the arts. We've been meeting once a week for a couple of months now, having great discussions about life as it relates to Bob Dylan's works. What does all this have to do with balance? Well, Dylan has a lot to say about life, but in talking with Jim, the idea of the artist the world knows as Bob Dylan can actually be viewed as the creation of Robert Allen Zimmerman, the person who adopted the pseudonym Bob Dylan early in life. And for most of his 80 years, Robert Zimmerman has entertained and perplexed and even infuriated us with many variations of Bob Dylan, each a part of who Zimmerman chooses to project. In an article from Far Out magazine, remember that? Far Out magazine? Reporter Joe Taysom writes, whilst Zimmerman was still performing in his local area before he escaped for the bright lights of New York City, the pseudonym allowed him the mask of anonymity. It meant that whilst he played on stage, he could morph into a brand new character that he created. It not only allowed him to perform songs without a care for repercussions, but it also gave him a fleeting escape from himself. End quote. The idea of an artist, in this case Robert Zimmerman, balancing their life by creating a public part, Bob Dylan, intrigues me. I think that to some extent many of us do this, perhaps without a pseudonym, but we have parts of ourselves that we present in varied situations that are just that, a part of ourselves. Though my legal name is Andrew Louis Feigin, my part here at the UUCC goes by Andy Feigin. What you see here is only a part of who Andrew Feigin is, who I am. I wonder how many parts you can identify of you. How about you take just a moment to consider the parts of you that make up who you are. Take a moment. Okay, you'll have more time after this if you want to keep thinking on that. You can't study Bob Dylan without also learning about Joan Baez. Their early careers famously overlapped and kept intersecting for a number of years. You may know the song Diamonds and Rust, in which Baez recounts their relationship. But more recently, a documentary titled Joan Baez, I Am a Noise, has shed a surprising light on Joan's life. In a revealing interview about the film, Baez tells NPR's Scott Simon, quote, "We both," that is Joan and her sister Mimi, "discovered some very deep trauma from childhood. And our bodies and brains were reacting to that, our whole lives without our knowing it, because it was all unconscious, subconscious." She goes on, "I was diagnosed with multiple personalities. And so through them, as each little entity inside you holds a memory or memories, when they're allowed to come up to consciousness or come up for air, they really do explain to you what their trauma was, which means it was mine and they carried it for me." End quote. Joan Baez was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, now called dissociative identity disorder, or DID. The film goes into the therapy she has received in resolving her disorder and the peace of mind that she has found on the other side. So in thinking about Robert Zimmerman / Bob Dylan and Joan Baez and her DID, I asked ChatGPT to discuss the difference between having multiple personalities and the realization that we are made up of many parts. It told me this, and I even verified this with my therapist. Dissociative identity disorder, DID, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, is defined as a severe psychiatric condition where a person exhibits two or more distinct identities or personality states, each with its own way of perceiving, thinking, and interacting with the world. Symptoms are memory gaps, identity confusion, different mannerisms, and sometimes even differences in handwriting, voice, or physical abilities. Causes are often linked to severe trauma, especially in childhood, leading the mind to disassociate as a defense mechanism. The key feature is the identities functioning separately, often without awareness of each other, causing distress, and disruption in daily life. Whereas recognizing life's many parts is the common experience of having different roles and aspects in life, for example, being a parent, a worker, a friend, an athlete. It is a normal cognitive and emotional process caused by a natural reflection of human adaptability to different social and personal contexts. Despite having multiple roles, there is a continuous, unified sense of self. A unified sense of self. That's the goal. A unified sense of self. Recognizing life's many parts is a common experience, a normal cognitive and emotional process. And I'm in the midst of that process as I grapple with balancing the parts of me that now seem to make up who I am. As Shakespeare said, one man in his time plays many parts. For me, there's the stage manager part, my dad part, my grandpa part, my Andy boy part. That's what my mother called me when I was a little kid. My Cornell student part. Here comes the yearbook photo. My New York guy part. My family guy part. My husband part. And my Cambria almost retired part, which includes my UU part, etc., etc. And I'm thinking about Robert Zimmerman and his alter ego, Bob Dylan, and Joan Baez and her dissociative identities, and about that seesaw, and I'm struggling with turning the page, and I'm struggling with having so many parts, and the challenge to balance all those parts, especially now that the pie chart has gone from this to this. I went on a lovely hike with my wise and wonderful son, Ben. Many of you have met Ben as he sometimes runs AV for our Sunday services. And we talked about all this. And Ben, who has been getting into Buddhism, meditating and studying at the White Heron Sangha, a Buddhist meditation community down in Avila Beach, he had some great insights. I wasn't recording our conversation, but research has provided me with words that capture the essence of what Ben and I discussed. Buddhism teaches that the self is not a singular, unchanging unity, but a collection of ever-changing physical and mental processes. The different roles we play, parent, worker, friend, seeker, are not fixed identities, but temporary, conditioned expressions of our being. Recognizing this can reduce attachment to roles and lessen suffering when they inevitably change. Our roles and aspects in life are constantly shifting, just like everything else. Instead of clinging to one role or identity, Buddhism encourages embracing flexibility and being fully present in each moment. While Buddhism teaches non-attachment, it does not advocate rejecting roles outright. The middle way suggests finding balance, fully engaging in life's responsibilities, but without being trapped by them. Mindfulness helps us to be present in each role without becoming overwhelmed by any single one. Our various roles arise in dependence on our relationships and circumstances. Understanding that we are interconnected rather than separate, fixed individuals can lead to greater compassion and wisdom in how we navigate different aspects of life. Instead of seeing ourselves as fragmented collection of identities, Buddhism encourages us to witness the changing nature of our roles without attachment or resistance. And this leads to a sense of inner peace and freedom, even as we engage in the different aspects of life. Finding balance, fully engaging in life's responsibilities, but without being trapped by them, or as psychology calls it, a unified sense of self. Over the years leading up to retirement, I've compiled a list of things I'd like to accomplish. It's a kind of long list, and I probably won't get through it all, especially since I keep adding to it. After visiting an Alexander Calder exhibit the other day, I've added mobile making to my list. And there's improving my juggling skills, bicycle maintenance, forming a colorblind advocacy group, and watching old Smothers Brothers videos. But by making the big change to that pie chart, freeing up time, mental and physical energy, along with some of my heart and soul, I hope to get a lot done as I rebalance my life. As we heard from John O'Donohue, you stand on the shore of new invitation to open your life to what is left undone. Now is the time to enjoy your heart's desire, to live the dreams you've waited for. So life is kind of like a seesaw. The old-fashioned ones were a lot of fun, but also challenging. You had to deal with the person on the other end being heavier or lighter than you. You have to figure out how to get onto the seesaw, and more importantly, how to get off the seesaw without crashing to the ground. But through thought and understanding, I'm working on how to find that balance. Find the mechanisms and methods that make balance and rebalance achievable, like that newfangled seesaw in Lincoln Park in West Seattle, with my granddaughter Olivia on the other end, balancing with Grandpa. Thank you.